Is Royal Caribbean Star of the Seas the most genius ship design ever? Look, my friends, I've been on a lot of cruises. I'm talking Carnival Excel Class, MSC World America, Utopia of the Seas, all ships that genuinely impressed me and raised a bar I did not expect to be cleared anytime soon. But my flabbers, they're aghasted because I just got home from Star of the Seas and it has achieved the title of my favorite ship ever. And this comes from someone who does not do cruise line sponsorships. I do not do media trips. I have no financial incentive to tell you if I think a ship is great or not. So when I say it, I want you to know exactly what that's worth. Now, why does Star earn such a magnificent title for someone that's been on nearly 50 cruises? It's because of something that not everyone is talking about. And before this review is over, I'm going to tell you about the one significant problem, though, with Icon Class that does take a little dim off the shine of this star. And Royal Caribbean's not exactly being transparent about it, and I don't like that part. But there's a lot that I love. Hi, I'm Melissa, a university professor who loves to cruise and who loves to talk ship. Now let's talk about the bar, right? Where was the bar? I had a pretty high bar of what I think is an exceptional cruise ship. The ships that impressed me most before this sailing are Carnival's Excel Class. Those ships had me in a chokehold. I absolutely love Celebration, Mardi Gras, and Jubilee. Then last summer, I sailed MSC World America. And although I've not always been the biggest fan of MSC, World America rocked my world. And then I sailed Royal Caribbean's Oasis class ship, Utopia of the Seas, in the fall, and that then kind of tied World America for my absolute favorite. The only problem is that was a really short sailing, as cruises on Utopia have traditionally been, and you just need a lot of days to see that ship. Now, each of these raised the bar in its own way. Carnival, for me, they always nail the experience of going big without losing what makes Carnival feel like Carnival. Really, that fun factor. They're called the fun ships for a reason, and I think Carnival food is something that cruisers love, right? You've got Guy's Burgers, you've got Blue Iguana, you got the lava cake, all those like special Carnival things that are there in abundance, and then some with the other specialty editions on the Excel class ships. Now with World America, this is really where MSC came in hard and proved that they can make a dent in the American market. MSC World America, obvious from the name, is intended for American audiences. The food has been elevated to American standards. Actually, I don't know if you would say that's elevated or not, but it's more tailored to American taste. And Utopia showed what happens when Royal Caribbean takes everything they learned from Icon's first year and actually acts on it. Now, I went into the sailing with genuinely high expectations. I knew it was gonna be great. Everyone's been raving about Icon. And then when Star came out, early adopters that were on Star have said it's even better somehow than Icon, which I don't understand because it's pretty much the same ship, but whatever. But I came in with a healthy dose of skepticism. And you know, I'm never afraid to talk ship. So the hype around Star has been enormous. I sometimes actually get a little turned off from hype of thinking, oh, it can't be that good, right? But I try to go into it with an open mind. And I did expect Star to be a lot like Utopia. What I did not expect was to step off that ship after 8 days and genuinely struggle to find a single thing about it I did not like, except for that one thing, which actually didn't affect me, but it could have, but it didn't. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to talk about the good stuff. And the big thing, and this is gonna sound nerdy, but it's all in the design. The thing I keep coming back to in the sailing. I am a nerd. I always reflect, why did I like this cruise? Why did I like this cruise ship? Is it the experience, the food, the combination of things, the entertainment? What is it? And with the ship, the reason I love it so much is not even about all that razzle dazzle, which is great and we're going to talk about, but it's something that a lot of cruise reviews are not going to touch upon. It's kind of like that underpinning there because it's invisible when it's working, but it's a huge factor, and that is the design. I'm not talking about the number of pools or how beautiful the promenade is or how cool the aquadome is. I'm talking about the underlying architecture and design of the ship. The decisions that determines how a ship actually feels to move through when there's 7,000 people trying to do a lot of the same things at the same time. And there are a lot of cruise skeptics who say, I just absolutely am repulsed by the idea of getting on a ship, the floating petri dish, with 7,000 other people. It's gonna feel so crowded. Friends, I promise you, I felt less crowded on this ship than I have on Radiance of the Seas, which you couldn't pay me to sail again, that I sailed a few months ago, that is significantly smaller in comparison. Now, when it comes to efficiency and design, let me tell you why I love it so much. I am a systems nerd. I have a lot of ADHD and OCD, and I despise unnecessary lines. I know lines are unavoidable a lot of times, and I don't even mind a line if it's efficient and flowing and it's smart, but I can't stand bottlenecks. I can't stand inefficiency. I can't stand poor logistics. I can't stand no thought into people flow. And I have strong opinions about the thoughtfulness that goes into how guests navigate a really large space. And we're talking tens of thousands of guests. Star is the first ship I have ever been on where I kept noticing the same design decisions rather than noticing where the design fell short. And when execution like this is intentional, it makes the one area where something has genuinely gone wrong all the more glaring. And I'm gonna talk about that in a minute. But the first thing I love about the design, this is not new to Star, it is something that you'll see on other Royal Caribbean ships, is the neighborhood concept. Now on Star, they have these 8 neighborhoods kids, and they are one of the biggest parts of the decisions of how the designers laid out this ship. You have Thrill Island, that's for the water park crowd, and that's where we start to get into some negativity, which we'll cover. There's Chill Island for the pool loungers if you're like, I don't want to be around the kids, get my hair wet, I don't want all the chaos of the kids. The Hideaway is the aft for adults who really want to get away from the kids and genuinely disappear, with an infinity pool and these beautiful ocean views. Then you do have Surfside for families with younger kids. Sometimes cruise ships can feel a little hostile to parents of toddlers, but Surfside is actually intended for those younger kids. Then my favorite part of the ship is Central Park. So romantic at night, so quiet and calm. There's live greenery. You feel like you're not on a cruise ship. You feel like you're in Central Park in New York. There's lights that are just beautiful. They have live music and classical music. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And I love cruising and I love the fun of cruising, which is why I tend to like Royal Caribbean and Carnival more. But sometimes it's sensory freaking overload. I can't stand it. Sometimes you're just like, I need a minute of quiet. And Central Park delivers on that. Then there's the Aquadome. Now this is really cool. This is the forward of the ship, and I'm not gonna lie, I always have thought Icon class ships are kind of ugly from the outside because they kind of look like, I don't know, weird animal heads. You've got this big glass dome. Well, I no longer think that's ugly because from the inside, holy cow, it's absolutely stunning. So the Aquadome is in the forward of the ship. You've got this dramatic 164-foot glass dome. And side note, some of the things in the areas and spaces in the ship can be a little hidden because I hit Aquadome a lot, but there's a big part there that I almost completely missed about that I'll tell you about in a minute that you don't want to miss out on. And then of course the Royal Promenade is the spine that connects the whole thing together. And you'll see that Royal Promenade on pretty much all Royal ships, even the old ones. Now each neighborhood has its own identity and purpose, and they distribute 7,000 people in it naturally without anyone actively managing it. That's the design doing the work. That's the design doing its job. So you really don't feel those crowds because the crowd is never really kind of congregated in one central place at one time. Now, the elevators. Let's talk about the elevators because these are the least sexy thing I could possibly praise about a cruise ship, but I'm gonna do it anyway because it makes a big difference because this is a consistent pain point in cruise world. If you've ever been on a cruise, and I don't care if it's small ship, medium ship, big ship, I don't care what ship, what cruise line, elevators are always the struggle bus. I don't know why they're so poorly designed. So as someone who has cruised a lot, nearly 50 cruises, I really appreciated the elevator design on this ship. Now, Royal Caribbean introduced smart elevators, and I know not all cruisers like smart elevators because they don't know how they work. It's really important when you're on a smart elevator that you don't just press one button, but you press the button the number of people in your party. Otherwise, the systems don't work the way they are intended. And such a simple solution is cruise lines could just simply put a little placard out, a sign that says, this is a smart elevator, this is how it works. But anyway, if you take a cruise, the ship has a smart elevator, press the button for the number of people in your party. And the way it works is the sophisticated systems algorithm should calculate which car goes where, so then when you get on the car, there's no buttons inside, it knows where you're going, you get to bypass all of these decks, which is important on a mega ship when there are so many of them, and it gets you there faster and more efficiently. Now, Royal Caribbean spent over 2 years testing this with more than 1,000 guests before locking it and fully installing it. And the result is stunning. I felt it and the numbers bear that out. The result is roughly 30% less wait time and 50%, cutting it in half, less time total getting to your destination. If you've ever been on a cruise, you've been on deck 1 and you're trying to get up to the Lido deck and you gotta stop at every single solitary floor, it's maddening. So this elevator design cuts down on that. So 8 days, 7,000 people, and not once, even on embarkation day, was I frustrated with the elevator situation. Now I wanna talk about the thing that's a real game changer, and all the things on Star that rocked my world, this is it. And this is gonna sound dumb, it's gonna sound nerdy. It's the freaking escalators. Escalators on a cruise ship. Let me tell you why this matters. The escalators are the detail that says everything about the design philosophy on the ship because it is so obviously correct. It's such an obvious, easy solution, and no one's just ever figured it out before. So think about this, right? It's in the central of the ship. It goes up the embarkation point, up 2 levels to that central promenade hub where you see this big, beautiful dome that they call the Pearl. So on embarkation and debarkation points, this is usually a pain point. You've got thousands of people trying to get all through the same bottleneck at the same time. So connecting all of these key decks with escalators was a brilliant move. And on a ship this size, the gangway has a maximum human density. Everyone's either arriving or leaving at once, bags in hand, you have this bottleneck. And historically, you've just had to rely on trying to schlep yourself up and down stairs or fighting the elevators, which, as I mentioned, have been a classic cruise ship pain point. But Star has treated this as a design problem that's worth solving. And it did take until 2025, 26 to figure it out. And I don't understand why it took this long. And I really hope this is a watershed moment in cruise ship design where they start putting in escalators on every single ship. Because let me tell you, when you experience, it makes a huge difference. All right, so enough nerdy stuff, enough geeking out about elevators and escalators, but I'm telling you, they matter. These are the things that you don't think about on a cruise. You come home and you either feel relaxed or you feel stressed. And if you feel relaxed, you never usually attribute that to the fact that the people flow, the efficiency, the logistics, the design was a big part of that. So it's kind of that invisible layer that undergirds an experience. But okay, I'm getting super professor nerdy here. So I want to talk about the stuff a lot of you want to hear about, which is all of the different things you can do. Now, here's something nobody tells you before you board. Star does require some dedicated exploration. And I had a friend on social media who very conveniently shared with me this little handwritten note that really came in clutch that shared all of the free dining options and their locations and all of the zones or these neighborhoods. And even with that, I had to spend one full sea day, and sadly, it was the second to last day. So at that point, I didn't have any time left really to enjoy these things, intentionally walking around the ship from end to end, because there are some kind of hidden spots that you'll find yourself in when you intentionally go to find them of like, oh my God, this has been here the whole time. I had no idea. Now, the space that for me was a little hidden and stopped us cold. And again, I only knew about it because one, I had someone on Facebook tell me about it. Actually, several people, they're like, you got to check this out. And I made friends on the cruise that actually were social media friends that said hello in real life. So on our exploration day, we went to go seek it out, and that was the Overlook. Now, as I mentioned, you got that big dome. I don't think it's the prettiest from the outside, but it sits at the very forward end of the ship up on deck 14, and it's tucked behind the Aquadome. So my man and I, we were at the Aquadome market a lot because it's a great source for free food. There's a lot it has to offer, and we never would have found it because it's kind of hidden. And this is a 2-level lounge. It's stunning in day, it's stunning at night. It's 220-degree view, floor to ceiling windows, looking out over the bow of the ship and that open ocean. And the design of it is just beautiful. It kind of reminds me of the Crow's Nest, but a much more fancy, bigger, elevated version of Crow's Nest if you're a Holland America cruiser. But anyway, they have cushioned seating, natural light, almost no foot traffic. So this is kind of like a quiet, enjoy the vibes, feeling that moment of gratitude, like, oh my God, I'm on a beautiful cruise ship in the middle of the ocean. How great is this moment? And it's really obvious that the designers were thinking about the full range of what guests need, including somewhere quiet to just chill and breathe. So if you're gonna sail on Star, go seek it out, find it on day 1, not on day 6 like we did. So find out those neighborhoods. There's lots of ship maps. There's lots of ship reviews here on YouTube. I don't do that. That's not my lane. Seek those out. And if you can spend the first bit of time on your cruise just walking it. It's a big ship. It's a lot to walk, but explore the neighborhoods and find out where you want to have your hang spots be. Now let's talk about the food, the drink package, and the weird Starbucks situation. The food across the ship is legit good, really, really good. And the structure of how it's available, it does reflect that same design thinking that I appreciate that I've been describing. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Usually on a cruise ship, you've got the buffet, which I hate. I actually just made a video about the disgusting things that people do on cruise ships, and a lot of it was around the buffet, so watch it. I'll link it below, but user discretion because it's pretty gross. But anyway, a lot of cruise ships, they have the traditional main dining room, they have the buffet, they might have a couple grab and go options, but Royal Caribbean does it big, and specifically on Star of the Seas and their Icon class ships. The one thing I really loved is a free grab and go option was the Aquadome Market. As I mentioned, this sits right behind that overlook. That's kind of that hidden area. And this was our favorite spot. They have multiple grab and go stations, but they're actually preparing the food for you and handing it to you. So hopefully you don't end up in a disgusting situation. They have several stations dedicated to different types of food. So there's like empanadas, there's Thai noodles, and then our big favorite was creme de la crepe, where you actually get to have a fresh crepe. I learned the crepe shells are actually pre-made, so that took a little bit of the allure away from it, but still was absolutely fantastic. It's a nice, quick, good way to get some food without having to deal with picked over food in the buffet. So I really like that. And there are a lot of these little just kind of quick grab and go food options, which again, I really appreciate. Pearl Market, which is located kind of behind that big Pearl, which is that central location right there in the interior promenade. I love that they just have grab and go sandwiches, wraps, fruit, stuff like that. It's really great. My one beef, why cruise ships got to put mayo on everything? I love a good sandwich, but I hate mayo. I can't do it. And everything has mayo. It'd be easier to make it plain and add the mayo than put mayo on everything, and cheaper too. And Royal's not the only cruise line that does this. But anyway, that's my moment as a mayo hater. Can't stand it. Everything has mayo. But the non-mayo things were quite delightful. Now let's talk about specialty dining. You'll find on Star of the Seas all the specialty dining options you will find on most Royal Caribbean ships. And my favorite is chops. As always, was exceptional. So good that we went not once, but twice. Now Star of the Seas has a new offering that you've probably never seen on other Royal Caribbean ships, and that is the Lincoln Supper Club. This is a 1930s Chicago-themed dinner and entertainment concept. So it sounds a little bit like the Royal Railway, which I did on Utopia, and it was cool. It's kind of like entertainment theater, but it was pretty expensive. I don't know if I would do that again. And everyone told me I had to try the Lincoln Supper Club. But when I looked at the price, I'm like, nah, no thank you, because I do ball on a budget and that's just not worth it for me, I don't think. But if you've done Lincoln Supper Club, you think it's amazing, you disagree with me, and you think it's worth the high price, let me know. Let's talk ship in the comments. But this is a venue I heard a lot about. I didn't go because of the price. Maybe I will have regrets. I don't know, because not one single person said one thing negative about it. But Chops was great. And of course, there are lots of other specialty dining options as well. And I think all of Royal Caribbean specialty dining options, I've had most of them, are really delicious. Now let's talk about the Starbucks situation, because this is legit weird. And if you're like me and you're a coffee fanatic, you want to know about this. And that is that I had the refreshment package. So I'm not a drinker, so sometimes I'll get the refreshment package. This is the non-alcoholic option. And I'm not even a big soda drinker either. So usually if I get the refreshment package, it's for the purpose of getting coffee. And Royal Caribbean has this weird kind of licensing relationship with Starbucks, where all the coffee served in all the various cafes throughout the ship are Starbucks coffees, but they're not Starbucks licensed or branded. So on Star of the Seas, they have the one central Starbucks hub that actually is full branded Starbucks. It has a lot of the Starbucks things like cake pops and things like that. They actually do now take the Starbucks reward card. That has never happened before in my experience on a Royal Caribbean ship, but the refreshment package does not work there. So my first day, I roll up on the Starbucks. Oh, I have the refreshment package. They said it didn't work there. And I almost thought, it doesn't count for coffee, but it does, just not at that Starbucks location. So I had to go to the other cafes. Pearl Cafe became my go-to, and that's where I got my coffee every day. Now, it is important to note though, if you like these kind of specific Starbucks drink, I'm going through a phase where I love the Cannonball. You can only get that at that Starbucks location. The other cafes don't have it. The other cafes are gonna have your basic lattes, mochas, espressos, stuff like that. But if you want your special, fancy, expensive, and it is pricey, I think it's actually more expensive than on land, Starbucks stuff, you gotta have it at the big location, the Starbucks location at the Royal Promenade. So if you like coffee, absolutely not a deal breaker, and I do appreciate that Royal Caribbean has not just the refreshment package, but they also have a coffee punch card that ends up being a little bit cheaper than buying it a la carte, as long as you're gonna use it throughout the entire cruise. So they call it the Cafe Select Punch Card. You get 15 specialty espresso drinks for one flat price. It is tricky though, because iced drinks are like 2 punches, but if you are a big coffee aficionado and fanatic, check out the punch card and check out the refreshment package. Now, one thing too I wanna mention, because I didn't know about this until people told me about it on social media, is apparently Royal Caribbean has this thing with dogs. They have Sailor, which is a golden retriever, and Sailor lives on board full time and wanders the ship on her own schedule. And she kind of is like a little celebrity on Star of the Seas, like a meet and a greet thing. And I actually saw her one day in Central Park, and I love animals. My man loves animals, and we were always like, our joking thing is, can I pet that dog? I want to pet that dog. And I saw Sailor. I didn't know at the time what Sailor was, and I'm like, can I pet that dog? But I thought it was a service animal because I was on a cruise ship, and so I didn't go pet that dog, and I had regrets because come to find out you can pet that dog. It's Sailor, the chief dog officer. But of course, always make sure you ask before you pet any dog. But Sailor is not a marketing stunt. She's genuinely this cool factor on board. It's really a lot of things that a lot of people ask me about that I didn't know about, but now you know. Now let's talk about entertainment. Royal Caribbean does a great job with entertainment, especially on these big ships. And the headline entertainment on Star of the Seas is Back to the Future, the musical. They offer this many nights in their main theater, and it's a full Broadway scale production. And I will tell you, as someone who's lucky enough to have seen Back to the Future actually on Broadway in New York City, it really lives up to it. It's almost an exact rendition, other than it being scaled down in terms of length. So we did go check that out. It was amazing. The special effects are like nothing you'll ever see on probably a cruise ship production. Definitely worth checking out, especially if you're an 80s baby and you have that fondness and nostalgia. Now, I also want to talk about something else that really Royal Caribbean has upped their game with. They've really done a lot with room tech. Now, I am a big fan of Virgin Voyages because I think they are top of the class with technology in the room. So I was pleasantly surprised on Star of the Seas to get into the room and find that you can control your cabin lights and your television through the app. And in theory, I say in theory because we could not get it to work and we're very tech savvy people, is you theoretically can stream Netflix on your TV. And I would love that, but we couldn't get it to work, but it could have been user error. And also there was so much to do and see on Star. We usually are TV watchers as we wind down before bed, but we watched very, very little TV on this cruise anyway. So kudos for Royal Caribbean for stepping up that in-room technology, because for me, I really like it. You're also gonna find a ton of amenities. If you have kids, there's no shortage of things to do. There's Crown's Edge, which is a ropes course and a skywalk that's suspended 154 feet above the ocean. It is in its own category. You're gonna find the Wave Rider surf simulator. There's also things for adults. Promenade is an art installation and a wayfaring landmark. And on a ship this large, having that visual anchor, and that's why I kind of love that pearl, it's kind of like your central hub. And that's, again, that's that really smart design that makes the ship just feel easy. So long story short, 8 days, not enough to see all of it. And that's not a complaint. It's just a statement about the scale of so much amazing stuff that this ship has to offer. So there's a lot of great, there's a lot of good. There's very little to complain about, but there is one thing I want to point out, and that's the little water slide problem. Category 6 is billed as the largest water park at sea. It's got 6 slides, 17,000 square feet. And it's the headline attraction for this ship and this class of ship that markets heavily to families. However, there is a bit of a problem, and I don't think Royal Caribbean's necessarily being forthright about it, and that's a little bit frustrating. And I only sought this out because people on social media kept asking me about it, because I hate water slides. My kid loves water slides, but she was not on this cruise, and if she were on this cruise, I think she would have been disappointed. Why? Because I did some research, I went around talking to guests and lifeguards and crew, and come to find out on my sailing, an 8-day sailing, 3 out of the 6 water slides were down. And I'm not talking intermittently down, I'm talking they were down literally the entire cruise. And this isn't due to weather or high wind conditions. That's understandable in cruise world, right? The stuff's gonna shut down on the top decks if it's really windy. It's a safety thing, but it's not that. And they were closed for the entire sailing. And so when you ask why they're shut down, they'll tell you it's for maintenance. But again, what maintenance takes that long? Why are these things shut down cruise after cruise after cruise for weeks at a time? So this is a known ongoing issue across both Icon class ships, Star of the Seas and Icon. Guests on recent sailings have reported as many as 4 slides closed at a time. When you're talking about this number of kids and adults that like water slides, trying to use them, cutting down from 6 down to 3 or 2, that's a meaningful impact. Now, if you try to dig into why, and people keep asking me why, I don't know, but Royal Caribbean has again not been forthright about it, but if you follow cruise news, which I obviously do, part of that root cause obviously appears to be the manufacturing issues that are requiring replacement parts from overseas, including at least one component that has to come from Germany. There also have been some serious incidents with glass and parts that are sourced from wherever on Royal Caribbean Icon class ships, including a serious incident in August 2025, where one of the slides broke while a guest was riding it, and he got pretty significantly injured, and it went viral on social media, and obviously Royal Caribbean does not want that to happen again. So what makes this worse than the maintenance headache is, again, Royal Caribbean has just not been forthcoming about it. If you're taking a cruise on Star, especially if you love water slides or you have kids, just bank on the fact that there's a very slim chance all 6 of them will be operational during your cruise. And then as a cruise line that's actively marketing Category 6 as this massive 6-slide water park in their marketing materials, I just wish they would be a little bit more honest about it. From what I've heard online, guests that complain about it, they're typically offered some token like $20 arcade credit. We're sorry the slides are down. So just be mindful of that. But my honest take, there's so much to do on Star of the Seas, even for adventure enthusiasts, that is a minor thing. I do hope Royal Caribbean figures it out. I wish it would be more forthcoming with guests about it. But in the grand scheme of things, there's really not much else to complain about when it comes to Star of the Seas. So if you've been afraid of the big ships, let me tell you, my friends, this is the one. It doesn't feel big, and that design is the big reason for it. You'll feel like you're on a small ship, but you get all of the amazing amenities that you're not going to find on any other cruise ship. So have you sailed Star of the Seas or Icon of the Seas? Let me know down in the comments, and let's talk ship.